Hello everyone, it's Reese here and you join me for a new video, another reaction video. I was sent this link to Collider and I was sent this one by a friend again because I think the topic here is likely to be an interesting read. So 10 horror movies that come the closest to perfection. That's quite a bold statement. And I'm intrigued to see what sort of stance the article takes on this, how it sort of is defining the perfection. Um, I can only really think of one film that immediately leaps to mind. Um, that I'm hoping will be on the list. I'll flag it when, or if it comes up. It wants to come up, or it'll be disappointing. As he has an article by Daniel Boyer, and we'll essentially go through all 10 of these. I'll react on sort of my, if I think they are close to perfection or not. And please do comment below and share your views on this as well. Has this article got it right? Has it got it wrong? So let's read the preamble a little bit. Of course, we see one video in the one film in the title picture that makes me think this is going to be an interesting list, shall we say? So since its inception, horror has been the pillar of the entertainment industry, a plethora of horror masterpieces. We'll find a look at that at some point. Ranging from timeless and memorable to the most new. Not every great horror film is regarded so highly. So how are they defining perfection? So the following 10 are hailed as tensely memorable, horrifying cult classics that fall short of masterpiece status. It seems here they're running with three criteria. So notable storytelling problems or controversies, the films having a poor reception on their initial release, or because they slipped under casual audiences' radar. That's not how I would define near masterpieces, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Let's run through. Let's go through this piece and let's see these things. So, the first one, Pontypool 2008. So sort of an audio zombie film. Yeah, it takes place in a radio station and there's like a sort of a zombie-ish virus that spreads through words and language. So there's this sort of tension about sort of how essentially we don't see any of it for the most part. It's all confined within the radio station. And essentially the people in the station are trying to figure out how to survive, what to do, how to sort of engage with sort of an infection that is spread through words, when words are the only things they have. I agree, tense and claustrophobic, and it is perhaps underappreciated as a film. Hopefully, it will rank as a masterpiece soon. I'm already not convinced by the arguments here. So essentially, the idea is that this is not really well known, and that someone makes it close to perfect. I'm already not on board with this, but let's plow on. Let's see where else we go. Trick or Treat, 2007. So an anthology horror starring old little Sam there. So an anthology horror with I think 4 or 5 little shorts, and that all take place within a little community, and these shorts sort of interact with each other. So characters from some shorts appear in others. You have sort of Anna Paquin as kind of a Snow White figure, and there is Dylan Baker, who's sort of the local, I think, high school principal or something, who sort of is a murderer. Brian Cox is sort of a curmudgeonly old man with links to sort of a tragedy in the past. It's really fun, and as anthology horrors go, it's probably one of the better ones. It's sort of gory, it's twisty, and it's fun. It might not have made a huge cultural impact. So essentially, they're ranking this as not perfect because it's again didn't have mainstream success. I'm two items into this list and already disputing the classification of perfection and masterpiece status, but yeah, Trick or Treat again is a grand film, recommended if you haven't seen it. The Invitation 2015. An underrated masterpiece in suspense and paranoia. So you have the Logan Marshall Green character who goes to sort of a funky dinner party, and then there's sort of tension and paranoia throughout the night as sort of he thinks that sort of there's something off with the rest of the guests. I mean, it's twisty. Much like the other films, it's increased in popularity over the years. As I feel like close to perfect or close to masterpiece is not quite the I feel like the title is not quite meshing with the article here. I feel like this is films that perhaps have just been sort of underappreciated or sort of are lesser known. Um, Lesson here to sort of all aspiring writers: make sure that the content of your writing actually matches up with the title. I'm not saying anything here that suggests these are near perfect, because it's talking here about sort of predictable tropes and an annoyingly slow pace. Agree with that or don't agree with that as you wish, but again, it's not delivering what I think we were told this was going to deliver. Eden Lake, 2008. Yeah, a brutal, brutal British horror, and come out in sort of the height of hoodie horror and sort of the discourse about things like chavs and hoodies and stuff, yobs, in Britain. And it's bleak, as it says in the first, one of the most unrelentingly bleak horror films in modern history. I think that is very much a fair thing, a fair description. So you have Kelly Riley and Michael Fassbender as a couple, and they go to a getaway for the weekend, and then things just go horribly, horribly wrong. It's brutal. It's not one that's popularly revisited because it is so sort of unremittingly nasty. Um, and sort of it ends, if you sort of if you ever see lists about kind of the most brutal endings of horror films, you're likely to find this one crop up because it is that nasty. Again, the piece here is saying it doesn't get the recognition it deserves. That's probably true. I say again, that's not sort of a masterpiece. Let's treat this list as underappreciated horror films. I think this is probably the better way to think about it, the fairer way. Um, on we go. 1408. Yeah, yeah, very much so. Strangely, it's not mentioned as much today. It's overshadowed by other. Yeah, underappreciated horror films. So John Cusack as a writer who's sort of a paranormal debunker, and he goes to um a hotel room. I want to say Samuel L. Jackson is like the concierge or something of the hotel, and he spends the night to debunk this room, but then sort of paranormal things happen. Yeah, it's a tall little thriller again. It's probably sort of in the middle of Stephen King adaptations. You know, you're not near Shawshank or Misery or any of those. But then this is sort of nowhere near Maximum Overdrive and Silver Bullet and all those sorts of films. So again, sort of if I can get on board with it, I would say is perhaps underappreciated. If you're a King fan, it's probably worth a watch. Don't Breathe, 2016. So again, I'm not entirely sure how I would sort of describe this in terms of even underappreciated. This was big when it came out, I remember, sort of everywhere. Stephen Lang is a blind man, and three burglars break into his house to steal some money, but then he turns the tables and sort of traps them inside. Um, Culminating in sort of a big shift in the third act that sort of caught a lot of people in the cinema I was in off guard. And it eventually led to a sequel that made him the hero. Which always feels iffy to me. I'm very iffy about the amount of films nowadays that sort of suggest villains are heroes. They're all just misunderstood, and I have sort of strong concerns about that. Um, it was honestly a masterful work of Chills and Thrills. Yeah, I would agree that it's really strong. There are some excellent sequences. A sequence where the blind man turns out the lights and sort of pursues the burglars in the darkness, and his hearing is obviously sort of uber strong. Again, yeah, tense thriller, worth a watch if you haven't seen it. For a master, I wouldn't go masterpiece, but there we go. This is apparently how Collider are qualifying them. Session 9, 2001. So this is a film, again, it's widely regarded as a cult classic, capable of putting anyone into an unsettling mood. That pretty much sums up what I'm going to say. So you have this sort of asbestos removal crew. David Caruso from CSI Miami, Horatio Caine is the lead. Peter Mullen is sort of our main central character. And they're going and doing this job and sort of encountering unsettling things based on the history of the mental hospital that they're sort of cleaning up. It's eerie. It's a film that sort of it's one of those that sort of has a sort of a big level of dread, I would say. Um, and where it goes, it's one again I think is sort of best to know as little about as possible. But again, this packs a few punches as it goes on. I could agree with it being criminally underrated. I could very much agree with that. And probably the best performance of Caruso, who sort of much though I love Horatio Caine, he's not really the best actor in the world. Shall we be charitable there? So Yeah, I'd recommend this. If you haven't seen this, this is quite a good one. This is quite a punchy and unsettling horror. On we go. Final Destination. So the image of the top of the article. And I don't know where you fall into this because I wouldn't describe it as near masterpiece. But I wouldn't even describe it as underappreciated. So the film, in case you haven't seen, there's a plane trip to Paris. And one of the passengers, played by Devon Sawa, sort of sees has a vision of the plane exploding. They get off the plane. The accident actually happens, but death, because they've escaped death then comes for them and sort of captures them in sort of a series of sort of Rube Goldberg-esque kills. Um, it's hard to describe this as underappreciated or unknown, based as a major franchise emerged from it, of which there was a sort of a new installment last year. As here, it's good but not perfect. Story and character flaws relies heavily on the audiences to look past the absurdity of the kills, but I think that's not right. You sort of get into the kills. That's the whole point of the franchise. Um, I'm yeah, I'm increasingly not sure what this list is. I understand why it was sent my way. Again, Midsummer. Um, uh, Midsummer. So I don't know if it's an unpopular view or not, but I don't like Midsummer at all. Um, Absolutely hate this one. I was bored witless when I watched it. So it starts Florence Pugh as a woman. Her family have died, and her boyfriend wants to break up with her, but doesn't quite have the sort of the strength of the character to do it. And so she winds up accompanying him and his friends to sort of a Swedish festival. Sort of one of the people is from Sweden, and it turns out they all have designs on the men, and they're sort of bringing the Florence Pugh character into their cult. Visually stellar, perfectly paced. I would really not agree with. I'd agree. I'll give you visually stellar. It looks gorgeous. Perfectly paced. I would not agree because, as I say, I was bored witless watching it. Um, to say that it's no perfect, it's well, I'm confused by this. It has a lot of strong points. It's often considered weaker, and this is largely due to conflicting views that critics and fans have about it. That's not an explanation. That's the same thing. Okay. Sorry, I'm being very critical. I used to be a sub editor for a newspaper. So seeing this sort of, I can sort of see those things a mile off. Yeah, maybe one to watch if you're sort of interested if you're interested in folk horror, definitely. Like Ari Aster and sort of the A24 space, maybe. And I wouldn't recommend Midsummer. I absolutely hated it. Carnival of Souls, oh, a blast from the past here. Um, so a woman who has sort of had a car accident and she goes to a new place, and then sort of spirits start to sort of appear to her and they're sort of pulling her to the titular carnival. And this, yeah, it's atmospheric. So sort of this low budget horror thing. Men small. What? I'm confused. I'm really confused now. So critics and viewers have rediscovered and reevaluated its brilliance, and it's now considered a highly influential horror classic. So in no sense is it even. I don't get it. So that is not sort of close to masterpiece status. Um, if you're saying that it is, um, it's not underappreciated if everyone knows it. Saying it's not reached mainstream success feels unlikely for a film made in 1962. And yeah, again, it's a good cult film, very, very recommended. Um, yeah, I'm just slightly baffled by this. So we always at the end of the list. No comments on the list. I would have been very, very intrigued to see what if anyone else had the sort of same issues that I did. Um, yeah, so 12 horror movies that came, 10 horror movies that came the closest to perfection. Um, yeah, I'm I'm not entirely sure that that sums up this list at all. So when I said at the start I had something in mind, I was thinking of The Thing. That was very much my view of what was likely to come. I just think that's probably sort of as close to a perfect horror film as you would get. I have some sort of tiny issues with it, and I might discuss in the video if people sort of are that interested. But I think in terms of sort of horror films coming close to perfection, that's probably where you'd land. Um, but yeah, it's a this was a weird list. Thank you for sharing this. If you see any lists, videos, rankings, whatever that you'd like me to react to, please do comment below and let me know because I want to make the stuff that you guys want to see. So please do share that with me. Um, similarly, if there are, we'll rewrite it then. We'll say this is sort of underappreciated. So if you know any sort of underappreciated horror films, and or if you have sort of films that you think are sort of near to perfection as horror films as well, please do comment those below as well. And make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, ring the bell so you know when new videos are coming. And otherwise, thank you so much for watching. And thank you so much for joining me in this quite unusual list ranking video, reaction video, shall we say. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you all in the next one.